Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today for the Axon Bulletin, I'm flying solo. The reason I'm flying solo is this is pre-recorded. It's going to give me an opportunity to run through how I think Celtic should line up to face Livingston at Celtic Park on Saturday, but also it will give me an opportunity to go through some of the comments and the questions that have come through in recent broadcasts that I've not had the chance to go through whilst I've been running the broadcast live, which doesn't mean I'm not interested in what everybody's got to say, but obviously we have limited time during the broadcast to go through some of the excellent comments. I love engaging with everybody who's been getting behind a Celtic State of Mind. And that is the purpose of going through some of the queries and comments that have come through on our social media channels. Now, if you've been watching the broadcasts over the last few weeks, thank you very much for supporting A Celtic State of Mind. We're going out live on a daily basis normally, and we go out live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. If you haven't already done so, please get subscribing on YouTube, because we do put out numerous broadcasts often on a daily basis, and we'll be covering this Saturday's match against Livingston at Celtic Park. How do I think we'll line up? Well, I believe that Barkas has done enough to be an automatic number one choice. I think he's impressed, even though he's coming for some criticism in the mainstream media from various parts of the Scottish media. I think that's been unfair, to be honest with you. If there's been any criticism of Barkas, it may well have been that he could have done better with the second goal against Ferencvaros, but I don't think he was wholly to blame for that. There was certainly some blame attributed to Elhamed, a player who I rate highly, but I wouldn't be picking in the starting lineup against Livingston as it happens. How would I line up? What shape am I going to go for? What formation? I don't think, to be honest, the formation worked effectively against St Mirren. We got the 3 points. That's what we were there for. I'm not going to criticise Neil Lennon all that much for that, because he got what we had to get there. We had to get the win, and that's exactly what he did. And it was a hard-fought win, in actual fact, the way that St Mirren lined up. But I would change the formation, and I would play what I think would be called a 3-5-2 in its most basic terms, but a 3-2-3-2, just when you look at the way that we shape up with the attacking players, the more offensive players that Celtic have at their disposal. So Barkas is in goals with Scott Bain on the bench, and it looks as though Neil Lennon is going to run throughout this monumental season with those two main goalkeepers, and Connor Hazard would be the backup should we have any major issues in the goalkeeper department. And that, in a way, is good, because it's going behind everything that Axom seems to back in terms of youth development. If we got another goalkeeper in there, then I think Connor Hazard would be in a position where he would be wondering where his future lies, because it certainly wouldn't be at Celtic Park being the fourth choice goalkeeper. So we're going to go with Barkas in goals. 3 at the back. Duffy, has he put a foot wrong for Celtic since he signed? Probably not. It looks like he's a leader. He definitely is a leader, and he's good for a goal. As is someone who I would have alongside him, Julian. I would bring Julian back into the side. I think he was maybe rested the other night, not because he can't play against a certain type of centre forward, just because it's good squad management on Neil Lennon's part to rest him. I would bring him back in, and I would also ensure that Ayer is in there amongst Duffy and Julian. Ayer has been composed. He's looked solid really since he's come back in. I know that there's a lot of Celtic fans out there who criticise Chris Ayer, but for me he's a first pick at centre half alongside Duffy and Julian, and I wouldn't like to see Ayer leaving the club anytime soon. I know that he's going to attract attention. Let me know what you think. Do you think that Chris Ayer is the type of player who, if we get that kind of offer that we've been hearing about, that we would allow him to leave for the likes of AC Milan? He certainly is capable of playing at that level. I seen a comment the other day from Hugh Keevans, who said if Chris Ayer is worth £20 million, and whose money are we talking? Well, how many John Spencers would 20 million buy us? 40 John Spencers? I think we're talking in that kind of level, Hugh. And Hugh Keevans obviously has been on a Celtic State of Mind. He was on a it must have been 2 years ago, he was on an early episode. And he's a Celtic fan, believe it or not, or he was certainly brought up a Celtic fan. I don't know, have you ever heard them questioning the flurry of activity and interest around Alfredo Morelos and the substantial fees that some of the biggest clubs in the world are apparently prepared to shell out for him? I don't think I've seen it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And if Hugh is listening, yeah, it's going to buy you 40 John Spencers, Shuggy. Midfield, moving into the midfields, there was a lot of talk the other night from Colin. I can understand his concerns about Scott Brown being one booking away from a suspension. We have to be cute about that with the Rangers game in mind. I just don't think we can play that game. I think we need to play Brown in every game, and if he gets suspended, then we'll deal with that. We've got every single game that comes up in this league season is 3 points as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I know how influential he is against Rangers. I know how big a part he plays as a captain in these derby games, but I wouldn't be prepared to rest him in any of the upcoming matches. And against Livingston, I would pair him up with Callum McGregor, who is, for me, Celtic's outstanding player. He is so consistent in the middle of midfield that there's no way I could see past him, and I think Callum McGregor and Scott Brown will start in the centre of midfield. This is where it for me it becomes difficult, because there's a couple of positions here that I think we're really well covered in. First of all, out left, we have various options out there. We can play James Forrest out left. If we wanted to play Frimpong on the right, we could play El Yunusi out there. And I think Lawrence Conley, Axom's contributor, who comes and joins us on the Bulletin on a Tuesday, he did mention that perhaps El Yunusi's best position is more central. He might be right. And it's for that reason, and also for the performance of Ryan Christie against St Mirren, that I would start with Ryan Christie on the left-hand side. Now, I know that Christie faded in the second half, but he was the architect of the first or the only 2 goals, and he also won the penalty. So in terms of his contribution, I'm going to keep Christie in there, and I think that he is vital to Celtic in an attacking sense, and I can see Celtic against Livingston at home spending most of that game in the top third of the pitch. On the right, I would stick with Jamesy Forrest. There was a lot of comments today actually about Forrest's overall performance not being up to scratch, but he scored the winner. He scored the winning goal. He's contributed to the game in the best way possible, and he remains in the team as far as I'm concerned. There's also the question about that forward playing midfielder, the one that sits behind the front two. Who can that be? Well, it could be El Yunusi, it could be Ryan Christie, and perhaps even David Turnbull. But I would start with Olivier Ntcham in front of McGregor and Brown for the visit of Livingston on Saturday. And why would I start with Ntcham? Again, I actually think so far this season he's impressed in all of the games that he's played in. That he started anyway. I know that, when he came on against Kilmarnock, he was up against it at that point, and he struggled to craft an opening against a packed Kelly defence. I say defence, it was 11 men behind the ball by that stage. So Ntcham starts that game for me, but I would like to see an appearance by Turnbull at some stage, and a substantial appearance, not just 10-15 minutes. It would be good if the game's going our way, and I think it will be, that Turnbull comes in and makes at least half an hour and makes his home starting debut for Celtic up front. I would like to see the return of the partnership between Odsonne Edouard and Ajeti. I would love to see the two of them starting again. Albion Ajeti has impressed. Didn't really have much opportunity the other night against St Mirren, but as our guest James McDonough, who is the manager of Edinburgh City, as our guest James McDonough said, it was a very difficult game for the forwards to craft any kind of opening in. So Ajeti and Edouard. So just as a reminder, I will be playing the classic 3-5-2. Barkas, Julian, Duffy and Ayer, Forrest, Brown, McGregor and Christie, with Ntcham in front of them, and Ajeti and Edouard up front. On the bench, I would make my bench up with Bain, Turnbull, Frimpong, Taylor, Klamala, Sorrow, El Yunusi, Beaton and Griffiths. And let me just double check that is 9 subs. So I would like to see Griffiths on there. Neil Lennon spoke just the other day about how Lee Griffiths is fit. He's fit for duty. And I'm a great supporter of Lee Griffiths. I want to see him back in the squad. I think what he brings to the squad is someone who you can actually introduce him into the games that we've struggled in. The games that we've struggled in being Kilmarnock. Even the other night, I don't think it was a major struggle. The big issue we had was crafting open chances in the second half. You bring in Lee Griffiths and he can start to become a nuisance to the St Mirren backline. And I would have liked to have seen him, although obviously he wasn't fit, I would have liked to have seen him in the European game that resulted in us getting bounced out of Europe against Ferencvaros. So if Griffiths isn't part of the lineup against Livingston, then I'm really concerned about whether or not we'll see him back in the Celtic side. And I hate to say that because I'd love to see Griffiths back in a Celtic jersey doing what he does best. So that is the team that I think we will line up against Livingston with. Please let me know what your thoughts are on my lineup. I'm now going to have a look at some of the comments that have come in our most recent broadcast. And the broadcast was all about whether or not Celtic should bring in Paddy Roberts. Now, we could probably divide this into 2 camps. The first one saying he's had his chance and he shouldn't get a third chance at Celtic. Well, Fraser Forster had his chance, didn't he? And he came back and he done okay for us last season. So for me, I would like to see a return to Paddy Roberts. I don't think that the deal would cost us in the region of £4-5 million. I think we're looking at a player whose career has stalled, and only because it's stalled would Celtic be in a position to buy him permanently. Let's say his fee would be in the region of £2.5 to £3 million, and then obviously he will be on a fairly good wage. You would hope that Celtic would be able to bring a player like Paddy Roberts back into the club. What are the pros and cons there? Well, for me, the positives would be the fact that he can cover both flanks. He can cover right and left. He would be this, I don't know if it's a mythical belief that Forrest needs someone to challenge him. I think Forrest is challenged. I think he's challenged down the right by Frimpong. I think if he goes over to the left, we've got a lot of good players down the left. At the moment, the players in question would be Christie and El Yunusi, and I guess also Taylor. Taylor would also be a player on that flank as well. But we will see a return to action of Mikey Johnson, who's been out since injuring himself in that match where Neil Lennon had some choice words for him. So Paddy Roberts would certainly boost that. I've seen a few comments coming in today, and we will read through them in support of Paddy. Jimbo saying that via YouTube that we should bring Paddy back. Helen McCallum, he hasn't really done anything since he left Celtic. Why would we bring him back? Listen, you're entitled to your opinion on that one, certainly, Helen. We've also got about, Jimbo saying that Paddy fits Celtic. There are certain players who seem to fit the Celtic mould. What is the Celtic mould? Is it, fast, entertaining, jinky players? No, I just think it's players who are constantly on the attack, particularly from a domestic sense. They're constantly on the attack. And when you look at, what Paddy Roberts has done since leaving Celtic last time round, with his loan deals at Girona, Norwich and Middlesbrough, he's going to clubs that maybe don't camp out in the top third of the pitch, who aren't always on the attack. And when he comes to Celtic, that's exactly what he'll be doing. He's on the attack all the time. And, that player at his age and the part he is in within his own career, he needs games. He needs to be performing. And I think this is the most important move of Paddy Roberts' career. If it goes wrong, then he may be a man of many clubs. He may turn into a journeyman player searching for a club that fits Paddy Roberts, and we already know that Celtic fits Paddy Roberts, so let's bring him in. Why not? I still do believe that we need cover at left back, without a doubt, but let's bring Paddy Roberts in. And also he can play in that, that support man role, the role behind the front two. So for me, Paddy Roberts is someone that I would love to see coming back into the Celtic side. And let's have a look at some of the other comments that were coming in. Jimbo said that the much maligned Bruni was by far the best midfielder we had. I think Scott Brown did play pretty well the other night, and that's the type of game where Scott Brown comes into his own as well with regards to trying to orchestrate the game from the middle of the park. So I think that Scott Brown will definitely start against Livingston, and we can't worry too much about him getting a booking, because every 3 points this season are important to us as we go for 10 in a row. Davy Boy says that most of the team were poor, including Edouard, who also missed a penalty. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think Edouard was poor. I think when a forward is in that position whereby it's very difficult for Celtic to craft any kind of openings, then the strikers are really up against it. And I guess that's where I've got some sympathy for Patrick Klimala. Klimala could run all night, and if the openings are not there, then it looks as though he's had a bad game. I've seen Edouard coming back a few times to try and get possession of the ball. There was one occasion where he was right back in the left back position. But, Edouard is a class player, and I think the expansive pitch at Celtic Park will lend itself to a far more effective performance by Edouard, who again has to be kept at all costs. Can you just imagine wee Paddy Roberts behind the front two creating chances for the likes of Ayeti and Edouard to run onto? I mean, that would be the thing that dreams are made of. Are any of the three players who have been linked elsewhere, are any of those three going to leave? And the three that I'm talking about obviously are Edouard, who's been linked to Arsenal. You've got Encham, who's been linked to Southampton, Lyon and Porto. And you've also got Ayer, who's been linked to AC Milan, the aforementioned Ayer. I don't think we should sell any of the three. If we did think about selling Encham, then obviously we could bring in the Paddy Roberts option would be a good one for us at that stage as well. So let's have a look at that as an option. Now, another thing that's kind of been bothering me over the last couple of days, and people might say, what's this got to do with football? What's this got to do with Celtic? Well, a Celtic State of Mind's always had a cultural feel, and we do speak about music, we speak about fashion, poetry, movies and other forms of entertainment, because Celtic fans are not just interested in football. We are interested in various other aspects of art and culture, and I think this is important to everybody really, because there have been comments made over the last couple of weeks by Ian Brown and Noel Gallagher. Now, I don't need to explain to you who they are. I know that Celtic fans will be well versed in the music of the Stone Roses and Oasis, and I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of both bands. I'm a big fan of Noel. I'm a big fan of Ian. But I find some of the comments that have been made by the pair being absolutely, quite dangerous, totally inappropriate. And, back in 2004, they did release a collaboration called Keep What You Got, and I think they might have to revisit the lyrics to that, because the whole idea of wearing a mask during the pandemic is that everybody keeps what they've got if they've got the virus. And I think Noel Gallagher and Ian Brown are ill-informed if they think that people shouldn't be wearing masks out there. As I say, as musicians, I've got a huge amount of respect for the both of them. And in actual fact, I own every record that Noel Gallagher has ever released as a solo artist, and also with Oasis, and every record that Ian Brown's ever released as a solo artist with the Stone Roses. And I think that when we're looking at the virus, the pandemic, they really need to practice what they preached in that song, Keep What You Got, when we're talking about wearing a mask to combat COVID-19. Now, Ian Brown's tweet was, no lockdown, no tests, no tracks, no masks, no vax. And I just think it's ridiculous. I really do. There has been times in the past where I've looked at Ian Brown's politics, and it's as if he's speaking my language. I think Noel Gallagher has probably gone down a completely different road when it comes to politics and me and the working classes. But, what he's coming away with and what Ian Brown has come away with on his social media, I just find it completely irresponsible. We're in the midst of a crisis. We're in the midst of a crisis that is continuing as we speak. And the last time I checked online, there was nearly 42,000 deaths in the UK as a result of the coronavirus. Now, people might question the accuracy of that, but, there is an element whereby you need to look at just how big an issue this has been, how devastating this has been to the entire country and beyond. Now over 935,000 deaths worldwide attributed to the COVID-19. Frontline workers forced to put themselves at risk on a daily basis to protect others and to serve others and give a service to others. Businesses are going bust. People are being made redundant on a daily basis. There's going to be a profound psychological effect felt and will persist for months and years to come as a result of this. And I think when you're reading these kind of tweets, it's about time these guys really grew up, opened their eyes to things beyond conspiracies, because Ian Brown's comments were conspiratorial. John Squire, his songwriting partner with the Stone Roses, then tweeted, "Wear a mask, stay safe, look after yourself and others," as if to say, come on Ian, you're talking absolute nonsense. Noel Gallagher was then interviewed on his regular podcast with Matt Morgan, and he was quoted as saying, "I choose not to wear one," referring to a mask. If I get the virus, it's on me, it's not on anyone else." I mean, how ridiculous does that sound? If he's got the virus, then he's going to be putting other people at risk. There's no need for it. They're pointless. He went on to question the science. Now, if it comes to getting advice on science from Noel Gallagher or from Oxford University and the studies that they did, who are you going to listen to? Now, if Oxford University release a song, I might question that, but I'm going to listen to them if they're going to be doing studies in relation to the COVID-19 impact. So do we take the advice of Ian or no, or do we heed the comprehensive Oxford University study advice, which states the evidence is clear that people should wear masks to reduce virus transmission and protect themselves? Bonehead, who was a rhythm guitarist on the first 3 Oasis albums, then tweeted a mask-wearing emoticon. Bonehead's in my camp, John Squire's in my camp. Now, I'm a fan of their music. I own every single record, as I say, released by Brown and Gallagher, but these nonsensical conspiratorial absurdities are up there with reptilian royal family theories. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So they're not going to age well. What happens when the death toll hits 1 million? Are they going to rethink their tweets and their views? And these views, they travel far and wide. They've got fan bases that are influential. They've been seen previously as spokespersons for generations. And I just think that, when you're in a position like that, often there's a certain element who will listen to influencers far more than they'll listen to politicians. Now, the politicians, there's very few out there that I respect, but you're going to have to look at the advice given to us by people who understand the science of this. And I don't think Noel and Ian understand the science of this. And although I do enjoy hearing things like "I want to be Edward" at Celtic Park and I can't wait to hear it again, we're not going to hear that famous Stone Roses song co-written by the aforementioned Ian Brown if we continue not wearing masks. So please, gentlemen, rethink your strategies there. And everybody at a Celtic state of mind, I think that over the last couple of weeks, there's been a togetherness, there's been a coming together. We're putting out live bulletins. Today, I've had to do it as a pre-recorded one, and I hope you enjoy it all the same. I'll be back to look at the match day Bulletins for the Livingston game. Please, everybody, stay safe, wear a mask, keep everybody safe, and I'll catch up with you all very, very soon, live again on a Celtic Stadium.